2, 3. Leaking Talokan!
Show them who we are.
So, just going into this story, I'm curious just how far you went as far as determining what has been happening in Wakanda for basically since the first Black Panther film up until this point.
Yeah, that's something Joe and I had to sit down and talk with Nate about. And just kind of establishing like that backstory, because we needed to know it for ourselves, but also our actors are very serious about their craft. That's gonna be the first thing they ask, like when they show up, like, all right, so what's been happening, where am I at, you know? We decided that after T'Challa and Shuri were snapped away by Thanos and all the damage that happened in the invasion of Wakanda by Thanos' army, that the vacant seat on the throne was determined to be occupied by Ramonda. So that decision went a very long way and led to the conflict between Ramonda and Nakia that caused Nakia to leave. So that decision right there started to inform more.
Like, because there is a 1-year time jump in this film,
Yes.
but when does this film take place? Do you know specifically?
Oh boy, in sort of a years?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't tell you. I could tell you where it sits in the other movies because
Sure.
we try to do it somewhat chronologically. But if you asked me, if you held a gun to my head, honestly, I probably would get it wrong.
So where do you say between the movies then?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you think about like this movie clearly happens after No Way Home and Eternals. I think it probably happens potentially concurrent with Thor. New Asgard does exist in our universe, for instance, or in our film, and almost concurrent with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is coming out in February, March.
A few months. So in the run-up to production and while you were filming, what were the kind of conversations that you were having with Ryan Coogler about kind of the journey that Okoye is on, both what we didn't see before this film and during?
There was lots of conversations around, her arc and how we get it there and the journey that she's on. We knew there was going to be quite a drastic thing that would happen to her in this film, and what that was really about, what was underneath that. Her very much her position, because there's a lot of elements of where grief is and how it's hitting different members of this ensemble in different ways. So where exactly does it hit her, and how is she handling it? And she's a very in control type of person, and likes to be that way. Obviously, she's handling the protection of the nation. So it's so really understanding how that translates into what she ends up doing, because she's a doer, to feel that control maintained, but is she taking care of herself?
Sure.
So all those things were very much discussed all the time, and just the tiny elements of what she would say, what she wouldn't say, all those little things about what comes out of her mouth was always something we explored very, 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 very thoroughly.
I love that you know the character that well over this amount of time too, that you can do that. I'm curious, did you talk about the relationship with Wakabi and what has happened with Okoye and him since?
We did. I can't go into too many details. You would ask my director about that whole thing. But we definitely did. There was stuff that, we didn't end up doing, but we definitely did.
Yeah, he's basically banished, but still in Wakanda's borders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's one line that refers to him still being alive. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Nice. And one scene that I specifically wanted to ask about is actually the scene where Wakabi is brought up, is the scene with you and Angela Bassett in the throne room, because there are some heavy emotions there, and from both sides, and you can understand where both of them are coming from. I'm just curious what it was like on set and just sharing that moment with Angela Bassett.
It was amazing. It was intense. It was a lot of. It was a very intense and exhausting day. My character is exhausted. She is, of course, she's horrified at her failings, and she doesn't expect even the result to be as dire as it is at the same time. So it's a lot that's going on for her in that scene, and this relationship between her and the Queen is more than dear to her. So there's that as well that's stirring in her. But the beauty of it all is that working with the people I get to work with, I'm blessed enough to work with, is we, sometimes I say it's because a lot of us are from theater, but that's not right to say necessarily. But, we just give each other everything we've got. It doesn't matter who the camera is focused on. So that was a day where I really was so thankful for our ensemble, because, when the camera was on her, I was giving her everything I had, and when the camera was on me, she was giving me everything she had. It didn't matter. And that's when you're in good company. When that's just what we naturally do for each other. We live in the story as many times as necessary to deliver the story as fully as we possibly can.
Have I not given everything?
When it just came to Attuma and Namora, like when you were first getting into the characters, what was it about them that you just personally really honed into at first and kind of wanted to express through your performances?
I think the story how, being, she's from Mexico, I was born in Venezuela, and the representation that we're bringing, in the story, you see this group of people diving into the ocean in search of a better life. So I think we can all somewhat imagine or have seen that here in the States, just people coming here in search of a better life, the American dream. And being part of that is such an honor, to represent diversity, to give a chance to people in South America, Central America, to see themselves. Hey, they look like us, they talk like us, they have accents like us, and in some ways, inspire them. If we can inspire at least one person, yeah.
To me, at the beginning was like, well, I'm actress, I need focus on my process, I need work a lot for represent with dignity to the women's and to Mexican women, to Latin American women. And 2 days ago, when I watched the movie for the first time, to me was like in my stomach. It's like, whoa, what means the representation? I don't have enough word, but that. But this is what I feel. It's to me means. This movie is like, wow, I feel for the first time what means watch my face in a superhero movie for the first time, because it's not just a superhero movie, it's a lot for people like me, change my life in every detail, personal detail, I don't know.
And I guess just want to also ask about just working with Tenoch Huerta, because Talokan is like an incredible character that people, obviously there's the legend, but also Namor from the comics. What was it kind of like working with him and just developing the dynamics between your characters?
It's so beautiful to see the growth that we all had together from our first day, whether it was the stunt training, the language training, the water training, to see each of us just growth into training, to shooting, to actually seeing it. It's such a bonding moment that, these are not my co-stars. These are like family members that we spend so much time, and it was difficult. It was nothing easy, and that adversity, I think, made us even closer. And I'm very happy to be here next to her and have worked with Tenoch,
And we work, Tenoch, Alex, and me work a lot for, 1 year training together every day for that movie. It's crazy.
We're a tripod.
That's amazing. One of the most exciting things about this film is the fact that you're introducing Namor, which is a character that fans have been waiting for forever.
Yeah.
Was this always the film that he was going to be introduced, or were there considerations of introducing him earlier?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually think this is the first time we seriously considered it. And it was something that Ryan had pitched in post on the first movie. Hey, if we get to do a sequel, which was an if, I would love to tackle Namor, because he's such a compelling character. Ryan is a fan of publishing and Namor, and in publishing Atlantis and Wakanda have had such great conflicts in the past. He was really interested in exploring that in a potential sequel. But I can't say that I remember another property before this where that was a real consideration.
Yeah. I love that you got to save it for him, basically. Then that's awesome.
Totally.
Yeah, we went through a lot of iterations of Namor, but they always had that at the core, like the idea that he feels like it's only a matter of time before he comes in conflict with the other people that inhabit the planet, like any wise leader or general or anybody. You know what I mean? He knows that your chances of victory improve if you can throw the first punch, so to speak. You know, so that's where he is in Namor in the comics. He's very pragmatic. You know, and also that has a distaste for people from that part of the world.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. And was the kind of that big question of like just the ethics of that, was that kind of the heart of the movie where you started the plot from, or?
No, no, not at all. Like I think that I think it's more like when we knew that we settled on this idea of the underwater empire being influenced by the culture of the classic, post-classic Mayan civilizations of the Yucatan. Mm-hmm. When we made that decision, we realized that, like, okay, these were people who had a very specific history when it came to other people from far away, and what happened to them, and how does that influence their views. Whereas Wakanda's history with the other people, they've been less affected. You know, and that contrast, I thought would be an interesting place to start. It was less about who's down to do a preemptive strike or not, and more about this idea of proving vulnerability. You know what I mean? Like when things have happened to you in the past, you kind of never stop feeling vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like in that, and I think that's like the key difference that the film is kind of talking about here.
Sure,
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We know what you whisper. They have lost their protector.
Well, actually, one scene I wanted to specifically ask about, kind of within that realm, is the Rise Talokan scene, because it is so passionate. I'm curious, just what? Yeah, of course. You caught that! I mean, what was it like? I mean, both to film it and see it on the big screen.
Listen, that was not part of the original script. You know, it was a consensus thing that we were like, you know, the Black Panther, you know, they have Wakanda Forever, and it's so powerful. It means so much. And we're like, we're very similar to the Wakandans, you know. We need something. So after a conversation with a language instructor, we came up with Talokan Rises, which is 1, 2, 3, Leaking Talokan! Which is like, yeah, we're here. This is our montage, so to speak, you know?
Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, our approach to it, and there's a lot of phenomenal creatives that had their hands in realizing Talokan. You know, not just me and Joe, but in the actors and you know, Hannah Beekler and Ruth Carter, the visual development department at Marvel, led by Ryan Coogler, and like once we got in there, you know, like in terms of making the movie, it was really about like what's the right amount to show in this Black Panther movie. Mm-hmm. You know, less is more, I think. You know what I mean? Like we wanted just enough to understand what we need people to understand for the story to work for them. Mm-hmm. and not trying to do too much because the film, you know, I don't know if the film could hold too much. You know what I'm saying? It already has so many other things to hold. So I think by doing that leaves the door open for whatever comes next.
For sure. And I mean, speaking of also new characters, I mean, Riri Williams is such a wonderful spark, and I'm just instantly excited for Ironheart next year, just immediately. I'm curious just what the coordination was between the productions and just like also, and how much of this movie is going to kind of set up what we see in that show.
Yeah, no, I mean, that show is an outgrowth of how much we liked her in this movie, and even on the page. So when we talked with Dominique initially, obviously the character had been written to the script, and she was the one and only person we talked about for the role, and when she said yes, we were down the road with the script. We also started talking to Ryan about what the show could be. So the show is a direct sequel to the movie. So Riri is carrying the experiences she had in this movie back home to MIT, and there's some interesting repercussions to her adventures that will set her on a fun course.
Fans have obviously very much embraced what you have contributed to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and there has been a lot of talk about the idea of you potentially taking on one of the bigger capstone Avenger Marvel projects.
Right.
I'm curious if that's something that you're personally interested in.
Yeah, that's a great question. How I work, personally, and hopefully it's no offense. I can, as a writer and director, I can only do what's in front of me. You know what I'm saying? I'm very poor at multitasking when it comes to that. I've never really been successful at multitasking. Usually if I'm trying to figure out something else while I'm doing something, the thing I'm doing suffers. So I like to stay focused on this, get this movie out into the world. Then I'll start thinking about what I want to do next, if anything, anytime soon. A lot went into this one.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, an absolutely incredible work.
Man, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
For sure.
It means a lot.
Now is our time to strike.
I've heard that you actually got the opportunity to take a spear home, but one question I wanted to ask.
I just took it.
You just took it? Just didn't actually ask anybody?
No, they knew.
Yeah.
They knew. The props, the guys who handle the props knew, yeah.
Well, now that we're getting to Halloween, I am curious, have you ever considered taking the full-on Dora Milaje uniform?
No. I think that's in a museum down the road, actually. My actual uniform, I know it's in that museum. So I don't know if I could take that home, but
Heist.
Huh?
You can set up a heist.
That's funny. But yeah, no, I think I like that it lives out there in its own way. It's good, as it should.